Welcome to this edition of the Joe from Texas podcast. I'm your host and moderator, Stefan Mihailu, along with the man himself, Joe from Texas. Joe, how are you? How are things?
Things are good in Texas. Thanks for asking.
Well, it's always good when you wake up in America, right?
Absolutely. Still the greatest country in the world.
Amen to that. Well, the people who want to lead the greatest country in the world, it seems like the race for president just got narrowed down to three. The big news of the week is that No Labels is not going to run a presidential candidate. So right now it's down to the two major parties, Joe Biden on the Democrats, Donald Trump on the Republican side. Robert F. Kennedy is running an independent race. Regardless of your politics, Joe, what would you say to voters about making a smart decision for one of those three men based on their willingness to reduce the almost $35 trillion national debt?
Well, the one that wants to reduce the debt and has a plan to do so, that's very important to the world, not just this country, because we're so connected around the world financially, country after country after country. If we default on our debt, if we can't pay our bills, it's going to have a bad effect around the world. So the candidate really takes that, embraces that as a major problem, and wants to do something that's going to change our pace. Right now, we have got to slow things down. No way you can stop, but we got to slow things down, take a few years, get this thing gradually to where we're not borrowing money, where we at least operate within our means. And then we look further down the road at how you start paying this thing down. This is a long-term problem to fix it because we've gotten here over some 200 plus years. So it's taken a lot of steam in the last 24 years, but we have got to get whichever candidate, and I'm looking forward to talking to all of them about what their plans are, and hopefully some of the 10 things that's on our contract they're going to embrace.
But aren't you just even somewhat puzzled, even as a business owner, you're a successful business owner, about the fact that politicians of both parties see that the national debt is nearing $35 trillion, probably could be $37 trillion by the time the election rolls around. And the Congressional Budget Office says it's going to be, potentially $57 trillion in 10 years. So as a business owner who's got to balance, his books every single day, does it just puzzle you, the fact that politicians of both parties aren't taking this seriously and they're not reducing it?
Yes, it does. It does puzzle me. But the biggest thing that I see is that nobody wants to talk about money. They want to talk about other issues that obviously are important to America. And we have this border crisis that America's facing right now. I look at that as like a huge diversion. That's keeping America's attention on that, which, it needs to be well deserved. A lot of attention needs to be there. But by doing that, we're not focusing on the cost of gas, the cost of food, the cost of interest, and this debt that's going up. And it's spiraling up almost out of control now. But it seems like there's always a distraction. Like the last election, there was distraction. There was riots in the street and always a distraction to get people off the main subject. But the main subject should be this debt problem that America has. And the candidates better take it serious, because the next 4 or 8 or 12 years down the road, we could be underwater.
Well, you mentioned those other issues. And let's just take, for example, the southern border. Let's say top politicians miraculously come up with a plan and the border is closed or they reduce inflation. I mean, that would be wonderful and great, but then you still have an almost $35 trillion national debt. So shouldn't that be really the number one priority before we get anything else in our house in order?
Absolutely, Steph. But if you close the border correctly, control that, we're spending almost $500 billion a year as a nation because of what's coming across the border. We've got 10 million illegal people in this country right now. That's a big number. That's tax dollars, and the government's funding a lot of things for these people as they get here, housing them on the border, and the other costs that's going with it. Cities are getting bombarded with costs at hospitals because people are going there. They're having their babies there. There's a lot of costs going in across the whole 50 states right now. That's a huge problem. So if you stop that, then that's several $100 billion that could not be, the government wouldn't be spending, a nation wouldn't be spending. All of those things would add up. That's just a big major problem. It's a big hunk. It's not as big as some of the other things we have, like Social Security and all those. Those programs are even bigger. So we've got a lot of programs that we have in this country that we've grown accustomed to. That we're not going to wean off of those. We got to figure out a way to keep those things sustained. And the way to do that is quit wasting money in a lot of other areas. And we need to do that. And I think that has got to be on somebody's agenda because it is so important this election. When I go out and I talk to people across the nation, there's more and more people talking about the debt.
You are crisscrossing the nation. I join you on some of these trips. And one of the big things you're talking about is the contract from the American people, a very specific 10-point plan when it comes to politicians to say, hey, here's how we could reduce the national debt. But one of the points has to do with securing the border. And it's an interesting point that you just brought up of, hey, we can save X amount of dollars by securing the border. But right now, one of the reasons why the government can't reduce that $34 trillion and soon to be $35 trillion national debt is because they're spending more money on migrants than veterans. Newsweek just came out with a story that said migrants are actually getting more money. They're getting paid more than those who wore the uniform defending America. Is that frustrating to you as a proud patriot and a business owner that this country and certain states are not reducing the debt, but they're spending more on migrants than veterans?
Well, it's a disgrace. I mean, you think about it when, I see that flag in your background. There's one in my background. And when I go out to the cemetery, I look at a lot of little flags there, with the different holidays and you go out there and you look at Veterans Day and these people most of those people that those flags are out there didn't die in the war. Most of those people didn't lose an arm or a leg in the war, but they were all willing to lose their life for this country. So yes, it's more than frustrating. It angers me a lot.
And now let's go to that contract from the American people. Again, your very specific 10-point plan. You're doing a huge marketing blitz across the country now. Why is it so important for you to encourage as many people as possible, to go to joefromtexas.com, click on the link that says contract for the American people, or for them to read it and sign it? Why is it so important to you, sir?
Well, because as we crisscross America now and talk to people, and I talked to a big group of people last night, most of them don't think their vote counts. That's why we've got to get 3, 5, 7 million people to sign on to our contract. And then we will, and when you read the contract, we will get with the 3 candidates at the right time and see who will embrace this contract. And if the one that embraces that contract, we then will go out to all of the people that signed it and ask those people to vote for that candidate. Now that's a powerful move. Then your vote really counts. Now we've got 5 million votes or 6 million votes or whatever. The candidates will pay attention to that block of votes. Like we've talked about before, $5 million will not move the needle a bunch for Trump or for Biden. And I don't know that it does for Kennedy, but I guarantee you 5 million votes, they will take the time to visit with that group of people. That is huge. That will sway the election for 2024.
But you've got a wide range of people across the country, police, firefighters, average citizens who have signed your contract from the American people. But you also have, and some pretty big heavy hitters that signed as well, correct?
Oh yeah, we've had some politicians sign it, but we had Vivek. He's probably my number one guy that signed it. And that was a big deal for me because he's got a lot on the ball, very intelligent. He's got his hands on the pulse of the people out there and what they actually want. And he's visited a lot, obviously, with the other politicians when he was debating them and so forth. So he knows that this plan we put together has a lot of merit. So that was a big deal for us.
Now, you mentioned too about the fact that there's strength in numbers. The more people that sign, the better, because then you could approach all politicians running for federal office, president, Congress, the whole 9 yards, and say, hey, we've got a pretty strong backing here to reduce the soon to be $35 trillion national debt. Here's who signed our contract for American people. And to make it clear, you've been very blessed. You worked hard, very successful business owner. You are not asking for money. That's all you're asking for people to do is to read this contract, love their country, and sign it, correct?
That is correct. We're gonna spend the time between now and November talking to as many people as we can, visiting crisscross the United States, We'll spend our own money doing this. We've got a research team. You're on the team. We got a lot of people on the team, and we're not just idling around. We're seeing where we can do the most good, where we can get the most traction. And we've got a lot coming up. Like I said, we've got a big blitz going on right now. We're gonna touch millions of people. We'll send out probably 15 to 20 million emails in the next 2 weeks. That's a lot. Okay. Now these are not just going out in the air. We're making sure that it's targeted, like you said, teachers, people that work at the schools, cafeteria workers, the whole gamut that works in the education, the whole gamut that works in law enforcement, whether it's sheriff's departments, police departments, highway patrol. There's firemen, all the first responders. These are people that are putting their life on the line every day for this country, and it's slipping away, like you say about our veterans. We want to talk to each and every one of the Americans out there and say your vote counts. Let's saddle our votes up together. Let's sit down with the politicians at the right time, and let's pick the politician that's going to do the most for America this time. And that's who we'll help get elected. And I guarantee you, the 5 or 6 or 7 million votes that we get together will sway this election. There's no doubt about it. 5 million votes will put somebody different in the White House than what it would have been.
And how important was it to you? And again, for our listening audience, it's joefromtexas.com. The contract from the American people is right there on the main part of the page. Joe, why is it so important to you as a patriot to put this contract from the American people together? Because isn't it a lot more than just saying, hey, we've got to reduce the debt. Here's a game plan. It talks about the border, education, law enforcement, correct?
Absolutely. It talks about Social Security. It's going to run out in less than 10 years. That's 68 million Americans. That'll double the poverty rate overnight when that happens. That's un-American to do that to these people. They have worked all their life, abided by the rules. Some of them was in the military, some of them wasn't, but they've worked and been good, honest citizens of this country. They paid into Social Security. Their employers paid it in. That's their retirement. And for that to be pulled away from them at what should be their golden years, that's totally un-American. They can't go back out now into the workforce and pick up that shortfall. Those people are going to be in a bad way for their last 5 or 10 or 15 years of their life, or maybe they're going to be dependent on their children. So that's going to make a burden for younger people starting their families out. That's totally unfair. So we talk about a lot of different things, but Social Security is very important to a lot of people. And when that happens, 9 or 10 years from now, there'll be 75 million people on Social Security. Also, Medicare is going to take a huge cut. What does that mean? Does that mean some people are not going to go to the doctor, so they're not going to get the care they need? We've got a country here that it was handed to us, especially right after World War II. It was handed us as the greatest superpower all over this earth. And we have squandered that now to be we're dependent on foreign countries just to pay our bills. It's a disgrace to the American people, and we need to change it. And we've got to change the leadership.
Well, I'm a father of 4. You're a father, grandfather, great-grandfather. How important is it to you personally to leave a better America for them than when you grew up in Texas?
Well, absolutely. I had a good upbringing. I had a mother that loved us a lot, and we were together, and we didn't have a lot, but we had a lot of love, and we knew that. Okay, we went to school. We had respect for the school. We had respect for the neighbors. You had respect for your family. It's important for me to leave those things as well as a good financial country for all our children and grandchildren and all America to have the same chance that I had. And that's slipping away. It's one thing to start out with nothing and make something, or at least have the opportunity to do so. But we're going to put these children and grandchildren so far behind the 8 ball that it's not starting out with nothing. It's starting out in the hole. And that's unfair.
We can't stick our heads in the sand and ignore the problems. We can't ignore the fact that right now, America, the economy, the border, inflation, we're in bad shape right now. We can't stick our heads in the sand about that. But on the flip side, Joe, you are a God-fearing, America-loving patriot. Do you still deep down feel some sense of optimism that say, yeah, times are tough right now, but you know what? We're Americans. We face our problems head on. and we fix them.
Absolutely. We'll get through this. We'll get through this. What we need is a different leader and a different mindset in Washington. Sometimes when you have to make a change, we've got to make a change with the way we run this country right now financially. It may have a little bit of pain here and there, but that's going to be a whole lot better than having this thing run off the cliff in a few years. We have got to do grown up things right now that are right for this country. It may not be the most popular thing, but you got to do what's right. And that's what you do with your children, and that's what you do in your business every day. You have to make decisions every day. Some of them you don't like, but for the better of the company, you do it. And for the better of your family, you certainly do it. And for this country, we need to make the right choices and get them done sooner than later.
And it all starts with your contract from the American people. Again, Joe, in closing, what would you say your passionate plea to people to go to joefromtexas.com and sign on the dotted line?
First thing, I want them to just go and read it a couple of times. Digest these 10 things, because we even have on there. If you have some comments, send it to us, because it's a work in progress. We're going to change it probably a little bit. We've already got feedback that we think maybe the term limits may need to be a little longer than what we have in there. But I put them as short as I could right now, because I know we're probably going to move that line up a little bit. But I want them to read it and digest it. Don't sign it the first day. Think about it. Next day, read it again. Talk to your spouse. Maybe talk to your children. Talk to your coworkers and say, what do you think about this? Here's a guy from Texas putting his own money out, trying to get us all to just pay attention to what's going on in our country. He's not wanting anything. He just wants us to pay attention. He's paying for the research. He's wanting us to pay attention. And then let us make an educated decision of who we vote for this time. You sign that contract. Let us have 5, 6, 7 million people. And I promise you, those candidates will sit down and talk to us. And somebody better get on the page about the economy and the other 9 things that's on this contract. And that's who will help move to the White House.
Amen to that. The website again is joefromtexas.com. That's where you'll find the contract for the American people.
That sounds good. We need millions of people to get behind. We need millions of Americans to get behind America, and let's get it back like it needs to be. And God bless.
Amen. Thank you so much for joining us. Greatly appreciate it.